We're back. Thank you all for being here. It's my great joy and pleasure to join you all once again. Um, Adventures abound in my life. You know, this concept of the mind linking of brainwaves together in a state of synchronicity where the doors open up, and the concept of the 100th monkey idea where a minimum number of people join together in the same conscious idea has the possibility of opening a doorway into higher dimensions of information access and influence into the quantum field itself to change reality. That's the concept here. But in the process, the energetic nature of consciousness itself in the sea of constant consciousness throughout the universe, we all become magnetized together. We become entangled together. It also means that anytime we listen to one of these soundtracks on our own, not even in synchronicity with everybody else, calls forth that synchronicity, sort of like a learned neurological response. If we're already entangled, and I listen to this soundtrack that I have linked with everybody with the soundtrack and caused this phenomenon to take place among all of us. Every time I listen to that soundtrack, my brain goes to this place that links to all of us. And we all don't even have to be listening to the soundtrack any longer to be drawn in and open the door to this larger energy field that we all represent being entangled together. It means that we have a resource that's larger than each one of us. We have a linked resource to the energy field of the whole group, whether we're all listening at this moment or not. It's one of the compounding things that begins to show up in quantum physics, that once particles are entangled, they are entangled forever outside of time and space. So that means that the timeline of when I happen to listen to a soundtrack in the future calls forth the immediate present experience that exists forever of all the different corridors of time and space that we have traveled down together as a sort of a spirit tribe. It also means that the success of any one person in the group is rippling effects out into the rest of the group. And so the level of things that have been happening in my life in the past few months has been accelerating into another dimension. I can't even begin to tell you the exploding opportunities and experiences and the people who are showing up is pretty mind-blowing. I've never really experienced anything like it before. And the reason why I wasn't here last week was because Shay and I were in Cancun. And that experience is just an example of the level of experiences that have been happening to us recently. And what I'm saying to you is, if you're not already experiencing this in your life, fasten your seatbelt, because it's coming. The more that my experience here expands and becomes more successful and more high-level quality spiritualized people show up into my field, that ripple effect is transmitting out to everybody else that we all connect with together. So it has an influence. And so, it's either affecting you now or is coming soon. That's what I'm getting at here. So, so this we went off to, flew off to Cancun to participate in a retreat that was going on in Cancun. And what we were expecting is a resort retreat, which was a 7-day retreat. We were going to be there for just a few days to do our part of that. We met the person who put this whole thing together, a guy named Daniel Raphael, an amazing sort of guy. And he does this thing called dream porting. He really does, I have to say, have his act together as far as a 7-day transformational experience, pulling out all the stops of all the stuff that I know, that I've heard of, that I've done, all in an amazing sort of package. And we're thinking that we're going to fly into Cancun and a van is going to pick us up and bring us to some resort, to do this dream porting thing, to do a little part of that. But no, that's not where we ended up. We ended up in this place, out in the middle of flipping nowhere, in the jungles of Cancun, driving on, after a long trip on highways, we end up in the nether regions on a gravel road that for 30 minutes winding back down into all of this space here. I mean, really, just amazing. If you have your headphones on, you can hear some of the 3D recordings we made. Amazing stuff. We use the most sophisticated 3D microphone that exists in the world right now. We just bought it. This microphone is pointed in all kinds of different directions, and it records 3D in a astounding realism like I've never heard before. But this experience out in these jungles in Cancun, traveling this road out into the nether regions, this was after a while of winding through this gravel road into the depths of these forest jungles and realizing I don't think we're going to be going to the resort that we thought we were going to. Surrounded as far as you could see into the depths of the forest, went nowhere. I mean, went out into the middle of the wilderness zone that we were driving deeper into the whole time. And when we get there, there are these sort of elevated walkways built throughout that go to different sites, temple sites. It was sort of really amazing stuff. So we're like arrived at this place that's multifaceted with many different buildings, each one more amazing than the rest. This huge hall where we had 60 people a part of this program, where we did the largest group mind link in person that I've ever done, 60 people. The largest up to this point was 30 people with Mattel. But this is where everybody, sits in a big circle and holds hands. And Shay was, taking two people, and two people right here. There's Shay right there, and these two people, where they let go of their hands, and he puts one HRV sensor on one wrist on her side and the other one on his wrist. And now to complete the circuit, the HRV circuit, it has to go through everybody's body all the way around in this circle to complete the circuit. And what you see on the HRV, the sympathetic parasympathetic, you see this sympathetic response, which is the stress that exists among a bunch of strangers, among a bunch of genetic strangers who, yes, are all there for the same purpose, but they're still strangers. So something about the system is up and wary. And then we do the sound sweep until this stress collapses. We just collapse the stress of the group entity of these 60 people. The personality that arises out of all these energy fields aligned together in a single space where we're measuring the group entity, and we're collapsing the stress among this group entity so they can really connect together and make the most out of this 7-day experience in the middle of the jungle that they've come for, this dream porting experience. That's me right there. This right back here was a big geodesic dome on its side filled with mirrors on each triangle. This is the jungle back in there. This place was immense and amazing. And then, of course, everybody listened to it together later, after they did a cacao ceremony with natives pounding drums and playing flutes. Right after that, we did a 10-minute ceremony where we played that group biotuning soundtrack for everyone. It was mind-blowing. And right after this, Shay set up the 3D microphone right in the middle of this circle of people. And we recorded their voice chanting this tone. And then we made a soundtrack of this group's voice singing their biotone with the 3D nature sounds that we had collected from Cancun as a backdrop. This guy right here, that's the fellow who put this whole thing together, Daniel Raphael. What an amazing group of people. This guy right here is an incredible musician from Brazil who lives in the jungle himself. All of these people were amazing. This is Nate Zalaznik, who is a good friend of ours, who I mentioned once before in a previous live stream. He's the only Western person who ever got trained and certified in these sacred traditions from Indonesia, from the royal family. This advanced breath work like I've never seen before. We're combining our work together, and so are we with Danielle. And there was a lot of people there who were all amazing. That who knows what's going to come from that. One thing that did come from it for sure was this heart connection. That is something that we all seek out to have with other people, other spiritually minded people who are there specifically to wake themselves up to a deeper place. That was a heart-centered connection with people, one-on-one, which brings us to today. And the inspiration for this particular live stream, this sort of idea that the mystery and the dynamic nature of the heart itself. Um, when I studied all this stuff in school, the heart has a central place to play in my work because I'm using this advanced real-time heart rate variability system, which is specifically measuring the electrical activity of the heart. And the mathematics of that combined with the respiration, because the heart and the lungs are hardwired together. You study them as a single unit in school. Cardiopulmonary physiology. You don't study them separately. They're so intertwined together that with HRV, when you're measuring the space between each heartbeat, you're actually measuring the electrical activity that's making the heart squeeze and the respiration that is together dictating what's going on here. And those two things, heart and respiration, where respiration is deeply associated with emotions, right? If I have an agitated emotion, I have an agitated respiration, agitated heart. And when I have peaceful emotions, then I have a smooth heart and no stress or reduced stress. So all of these things are very important. And the heart seems to be the window that we can look through mathematically to see the functioning of the master system of all systems in the body. The master system that tells all other systems what to do, the autonomic nervous system with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system in there floating around doing its thing. And biotuning is attempting to take the abnormal stress cycle that gets stuck there and collapse it back to homeostasis of zero stress in the system. My safe place, which is a prerequisite for healing and a prerequisite for being able to open the doors to my deeper self and connect with the universe and feel safe to do that. The whole concept there. But, we have a long history of human fascination with the heart going all the way back to Egypt. In ancient Egypt, the heart was the most sacred organ of all, central to both life and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that the heart contained the intellect, the emotions, morality, even memory, functions that, later were attributed to the brain. During mummification, the heart was left in place while the brain was removed and discarded. In the famous weighing of the heart, which I have in this picture here, in the weighing of the heart ceremony, described in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, if you've never read it, it's a little light reading, the god Anubis weighed a deceased person's heart against the feather of Ma'at, the sacred bird, the bird of truth, by the way. If the heart was pure, the soul would continue to the afterlife. If it was heavy with sin, it was devoured by Amit, a hybrid beast. This belief reinforced the idea that the heart was the moral compass of a person's existence. God knows what it was like for the prehistoric ancestors who lived in caves to put your ear on another person's chest and to hear this mysterious beating thing going on, having no idea what that was. The rhythmic sound of life itself. But, the sort of the in Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia, particularly the Babylonians and the Assyrians, they viewed the heart as the seat of wisdom and divine connection. They believed the gods could influence the heart and that its rhythms could signal omens. Mesopotamian texts described early understandings of heart disease, irregular heartbeats, and even hypertension showing that their physicians recognized a link between emotions and heart health. In ancient India, the Vedic traditions, the heart was considered the resonance of Atman, the individual soul, and a vital energy center, the heart chakra. The heart chakra, anahata, was associated with love, compassion, balance, the seat of Atman, of the individual soul. Very powerful, the heart. The seat of the anahata chakra, the heart chakra, the chakra of love and compassion and empathy. Very seems to be in the news recently. Between the groups that are somehow polarizing out, where those who have compassion for others as sort of on one side, and the people who don't are their compassion is limited to themselves and their immediate family, but not for other people who are, quote, strangers. It seems to be up in the air right now in history. Ancient, China, the Chinese medicine viewed the heart as the master of the body, not just physically, but spiritually. According to Taoist and Confucian philosophy, the heart was linked to wisdom, morality, emotional harmony. The earliest medical texts, such as the Yellow Emperor's Classic Medicine, described how emotions like joy and sorrow could affect heart function. Just happen to have my copy here, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine. This is a mind-blowing text, really, I have to say. So it's 4,500 years old, describing the core and the essence of acupuncture. But deeper than that, the essence of the flow of qi and health and healing, and how you treat different conditions, and how you look at health and disease from a higher esoteric perspective, that whether you're an acupuncturist or not, it's a pretty mind-blowing thing to read, I have to say. Anybody who is a holistic practitioner of any kind should read this book. Chinese were no slouches, And here we are again to my favorite period, ancient Greece, which I've spent a lot of time on in previous live streams. But it seems that, all roads lead to the masters of ancient Greece, the greatest thinkers of all time. So this guy, Mayan of Croton. Croton, by the way, is where Pythagoras was. 5th century, was among the first to suggest that the brain controlled intelligence, contradicting other traditions. So this thing of the brain was starting to become recognized and was becoming separated out from the heart as the sole seat of sort of everything. This is where it began. Aristotle himself, he disagreed. He argued that the heart was the center of sensation, emotion, and reason. He believed the brain merely cooled the body's heat, while the heart generated energy and compassion. So there was a debate going on there, but the debate was beginning between the heart and the brain. The brain was being recognized as something of its own. Even Hippocrates, one of the greatest holistic healers of all time, acknowledged the heart's role in circulation, but was more inclined to see the brain as the center of thought. So here we started to create the divide between the heart and the brain and ascribe things that were all described before only to the heart, as some belonging to the brain and some to the heart, as these new ideas started to take root. Another famous Greek philosopher and healer was Galen. He refined these ideas. He argued that the heart was responsible for circulating the vital spirit, a concept that persisted in medicine for centuries. Circulation of the vital spirit. He's really close to something, because there is this circulation factor that was going on, that the circulation of the blood, the vital forces. He definitely was on to something. Something was happening here that was maturing a view of where things in the body stand in their proper place. When we go into ancient Islam, Avicenna, this guy described the heart as the prince of the body, responsible for distributing life force through blood. Life force through blood and circulation now is becoming a thing associated with the heart. This concept of the blood and circulation. Another of his contemporaries, Ibn al-Nafis, made a groundbreaking discovery that the pulmonary circulation of blood, challenging Galen's theories centuries before Europeans confirmed it. So the pulmonary circulation of blood, which means that the heart was connected to the lungs, and the lungs were charging the blood. This guy was the first one to start to see that there was this relationship between the heart and the lungs and the blood, and charging the vital force, and a secret of health. Meantime, now we're advancing into medieval Europe, where the sort of the Christian culture was taking over, and it was also sedimenting out into the standard Christian church and all of its dogma, and the esoteric Christian underground church of the Essenes and the Gnostics, who had the allegorical, metaphorical view of all of the teachings of the Bible and of Jesus. The Knights Templar were the army of God to protect the sanctity of the heart of Jesus and the compassion. Pretty much the army of the Lord to protect Christianity. And they had their own sort of mind-blowing traditions. The knights and poets of chivalry, the tradition of chivalry, saw the heart as a source of courage and romantic devotion. And the Sacred Heart of Jesus himself. This picture that we're all familiar with, where Jesus was of the heart, the sacred heart, the evolved heart, the heart of compassion for all living things. Love thy neighbor. Help one another. Love one another. Help the poor and the downtrodden. Welcome the stranger. Turn no one away. Leave no one left behind. Teachings of Jesus. So the links to the heart here, and the heart chakra from India, which has many of the same qualities, was the core principle of what Christianity was supposed to be standing for. Compassion, loving one another, and helping one another. When we get into the Renaissance with unimaginable luminaries like Leonardo da Vinci, for God's sake, and Michelangelo, and all of these great explorers, where they're now beginning to explore the sacred geometries of the golden section ratio. And Leonardo's picture of the Vitruvian man, the man with his legs and arms outstretched in a circle with a square, exploring all of the sacred geometries of the proportions of the human body based on the golden section ratio, where, you know, Michelangelo did that same thing in 3D with the 20-foot tall statue of David. David was his exploration in 3D of what Leonardo da Vinci did in 2D with the drawing of the Vitruvian man. Michelangelo was doing it in 3D. What does the perfectly proportioned human body look like according to all the perfect measurements of the golden section ratio, where all the proportions were divine proportions? What would that look like? That was the task he set before himself to create the statue of David. That's the reason why it's so unbelievably famous, is the statue. And the same thing with the Vitruvian man, why it's so famous, and why so many of the artists of the Renaissance were exploring this concept of the golden section ratio. In India, the golden section ratio in music was the sacred music, where you've got the tambura with 4 strings, the big gourd looks like a sitar with a neck with 4 tuning pegs. Those 4 strings are tuned to the tonic note, whatever that's going to be, as a low vibration string. The next 2 strings were that same note, but an octave higher. And then the 4th note was a harmonic 5th, which is the golden section ratio proportion to the fundamental. So we go bum, 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 bum. It reiterates a subconscious pattern recognition of a sacred mathematical proportion, the golden section ratio, in music, in my body, and how planets orbits around suns, and how the periodic table is put together. I mean, all kinds of nature forms that show up. That's what the exploration was all about, into the mysteries of why this is so, and exemplifying that in the proportions of paintings during the Renaissance, proportions of bodies, the concept of beauty, the proportions of the face, all of those things. So, you know, Leonardo da Vinci conducted detailed anatomical studies of the heart, creating some of the most accurate sketches of the time. And remember, he was contracting with various institutes that handled dead bodies, so that he could get these dead bodies from them to dissect them in great detail and draw what he saw, which yielded all these mind-blowing, you know, drawings that he had done. This is just the heart. Leonardo da Vinci's drawings of the heart were in excruciating detail, including the arteries and the veins and the chambers and, you know, the arterial blood vessels and the pulmonary blood vessels coming out. Even the valves of the heart were drawn. Just amazing stuff going on. And this guy, Andreas Vesalius, I mean, he's another one. Like his anatomical drawings were, once again, took the world by storm and became the standard in medicine at that time of dissection, of medical doctors learning about what's in the body. Here's some of his drawings of the heart and the circulation, some of the organs. This is his dissection of the heart right here. There's the heart. These are the pericardial sac. The lungs are right on the outside of this, but this kind of level of detail, amazing stuff that he was doing. So, these guys were a whole new breed where the heart was being grounded out in physical reality, that the mystical nature of the heart was being set aside, and the physical nature of the heart as a muscle, as a thing that could be dissected, now became the new thing. Vesalius challenged the ancient anatomical misconceptions, dissecting human cadavers to gain precise knowledge of the heart, the vascular system, the circulatory system, its connection to the lungs, and the brain, and all the rest of that. I mean, really amazing stuff. Here's another one. William Harvey published the De Motu Cordis in 1628, proving that blood circulates through the body via the heart, fundamentally transforming medical understanding. This was the man who finally nailed it down, that the heart is the center of a vast circulatory system that supplies everything in the body with blood, and that blood is oxygenated through the lungs and circulated through the body back into the heart, where its CO2 is expelled out, and oxygen is replaced back in a circulatory system that supplies everything, including the brain. Powerful, amazing stuff. I have to remember that at this period of time, nobody knew this. This was the first time anybody had really nailed this down. So medicine is advancing by leaps and bounds in the grounded details of the physicality of the heart. When we get past sort of the Renaissance, and we're getting into the industrial age and the age of enlightenment, that trend is continuing. René Descartes, who, during the 17th and 18th centuries, the heart lost much of its mystical significance as science embraced the mechanistic view of the body. This is where things were going. René Descartes compared the body to a machine, with the heart functioning as a simple pump. The rise of materialism led to a diminishing role of the heart as an emotional or a spiritual center, and more as a mechanical muscular pump that pumped blood around the circulatory system. And so it went during that period of time. We did have, in the Romantic era, late 18th, 19th century, luminaries like William Blake and his whole take on the heart and compassion and, the division of light and dark by God himself and all of this kind of stuff. Wolfgang von Goethe, he was also a luminary in that period of time. This guy in 1816, René Laennec, invented the stethoscope, allowing doctors to listen to heartbeats. The first classifications of heart disease as a medical condition arose from his work. Back in that period of time in the 1800s, it was problematic if a doctor wanted to assess your heart health if you're a woman, because the only way to hear what's going on with the heart was to put your ear on a person's chest, and that was not allowed during those periods of time. No man was able to put his head, on the chest of a woman to hear their heart. So this guy rolled up a piece of paper and stuck it on there and put his ear on the piece of paper, and sure enough, he could hear the heart. And so that began his discovery and his invention of the first stethoscope, which was a wooden cylinder that you could put your ear on, and the other end went on the chest. And of course, as time went on, that got refined. And this is one of the first stethoscopes that is the precursor of the ones we have today. All of a sudden, you really could hear details of the heart that were far superior than putting your ear on a person's chest. This could really localize and magnify with this sort of cone structure what you were hearing. Of course, nowadays we have extremely sophisticated electronic stethoscopes that can pick out sounds like you've never heard before. There was a company that I met 12 years ago or so that had a whole new way of analyzing the heart signals from an electronic amplified stethoscope, the most powerful one I'd ever seen. That when you hear the heartbeat, there are subtle little beats within that heartbeat. And those subtle beats are what's called a bold signal. It's an acronym for I don't remember what, but kind of thing that's now used in fMRI studies, and how they discovered the default mode network brain frequency, 4 zones synchronized together with a bold signal of how the arteries are expanding and contracting with each time the brain waves fire, because they're using oxygen and they're causing this other ripple inside the blood ripple of the heart contracting, which is making this pulse. Within that pulse is the liver pulse and the kidney pulse and the pancreas pulse and cerebral spinal fluid pulse. All these pulses are pulses within pulses within pulses. And this system had an electronic stethoscope powerful enough to pick all those up, and a program that could separate them out so you could start to tell the health of every organ in your body from the heart signal and the minor pulses within those signals that are coming from these different organs and glands. 1952, now all of a sudden we've got the first open heart surgery performed. And now things are really off and running into eras of the modern world that, the first human heart transplant that ever took place, 1967. Wow. Heart transplant. Then there's artificial hearts, a titanium heart. Good God. An artificial heart, and pacemakers and stuff like that to keep the heart on a pace when it's irregular. This is where all of that grounded out in physicality. And it had to go there so that it could once again release, and the mystical aspects of the heart could be revealed once more. Here's a PubMed article that all of a sudden, I remember this day, the heart was reclassified as an endocrine organ, 2014. What a mind blower. In the esoteric studies of the chakras and the heart chakra, every chakra is a metaphysical energy vortex in a sort of another dimension. It's too subtle for us to measure with our current equipment. However, each chakra is associated with a physical gland, right? All the glands below the neck. So the base chakra with the sex organs and the hormones that come from those. And as you step up, you've got different, like the adrenal glands are an organ, and the pancreas is an organ, and the thyroid is an organ with the throat chakra. But the heart was always weird. It was the only one that was associated with a mechanical pump, not an endocrine gland. Laying on top of the heart is the thymus gland, which is the center of my immune system function. So I always kind of thought, well, it's called the heart chakra, but actually it's the thymus chakra. That's the endocrine gland. Until this day, when I saw that the heart had been reclassified as an endocrine organ that the heart itself produces hormones that have an effect on the body. That blew my mind and brought the whole thing sort of full circle back to me, that the ancients were once again correct, that this is a endocrine gland of its own right. The heart itself is an endocrine gland of its own right, associated with the heart chakra. Heart is considered a partial endocrine gland because it produces hormones, specifically atrial natriuretic peptide and brain natriuretic peptide, which help regulate blood pressure and fluid volume by signaling the kidneys to excrete sodium and water, essentially acting as a communication system with the rest of the body through hormone secretion. So the heart as endocrine gland, not simple pump, not just simple pump. A new meaning for the heart chakra. Once again, an alignment with the ancient statements that all of the chakras are associated with a gland, the brow chakra with the pituitary gland, and the crown chakra with the pineal gland. I've covered this in great detail in a 3-part series on the chakras 4 years ago. Go back and look for it. In the old broadcasts, I did a 3-part series on the chakras where I discussed them all in great detail, this kind of stuff. The heart has its own brain. So here we go again, 2024. This is very recent that they discovered neurons in the atrium of the brain. The atrium is the muscles up here, the chamber that's up here. The ventricle is the big one down here. They've discovered bundles of neurons. New research from Columbia University shows that the heart has a mini brain, its own nervous system that controls the heartbeat. A better understanding of this system, which is much more diverse and complex than previously thought, could lead to new treatments for heart diseases. So now all of a sudden, it's a pump that pumps the vital fluids throughout the body, exchanges oxygen, CO2. It's got a brain. It's got neurons. It's an endocrine gland. The heart is starting to look pretty cool all of a sudden. The heart is something that's mind-blowing. That's way more than anybody in the current century has suspected to be so. The ancients, yes, they knew it. Yes, the heart has its own nervous system, sometimes called the little brain. This system helps the heart regulate its rhythm and beat, and it can even sense emotions. It can sense emotions. How does the heart's brain work? The heart's brain, also known as the intracardial nervous system, the ICN, is made up of neurons, neurotransmitters, and support cells. It receives input from the brain about the body's internal state and environment. The ICN helps the heart maintain its rhythm and beat, and it can even protect cardiac muscle during a heart attack. The ICN can act independently of the brain, and it can learn, remember, and even feel and sense. There's a real possibility that emotional memories are deposited in the brain of the heart itself. Aside from the hippocampus structures that wrap around the autonomic nervous system, the amygdala and the hippocampus, where we have memory storehouse, immediate emotional responses through the amygdala. And now looks like the heart is involved in all of that, and they cross-pollinate and talk to each other and distribute memories throughout this dual system. What a mind blower. It's the brain heart. It's a new way of looking at the brain heart. This has long been a project that is the evolution of our work here at Center for Neuroacoustic Research. The idea that the brain and the heart are electromagnetically linked together as well. That what's going on with brainwave rhythms is deeply associated with rhythms in electrical depolarization of the heart. That the electrical depolarization of the heart and the beat speed of the heart and the space between each heartbeat measured by HRV is all deeply associated with what's happening with brain waves and the octaves and harmonics of those brain waves that mathematically link directly with the heart activation. We are coming to this soon. It's been a long time coming, but now reality is fleshing us out with just the groups and the people are showing up to make this happen. So I'm hoping that within the next year, we will have our EEG system linked into the HRV system, and we'll begin looking at programs that are looking for the patterns of harmonics and octave relationships between the electrical activity of the heart and the brain, so that we can maybe come to a deeper, more complete understanding of what homeostasis looks like, my zero stress place, not just in the autonomic nervous system, but in the brain and in the heart and that whole triune system. The heart-brain communication pathways. This is a real thing in research right now, the heart-brain communication. The fact that modern medicine and the scientific community recognize that there is something going on here. Here we've got the brain, and here we've got the heart, and here we've got the whole autonomic nervous system through the vagus nerve. This whole triune system, brain, heart, and the autonomic nervous system, is the system that we sort of deal with biotoning. Sound waves can balance this whole triune system together into a harmonic mode where all kinds of special stuff starts to happen. This is a picture of the heart, and these yellow nodules is the brain cells in the heart, in the atrium of the heart. The male heart and the female heart, where they're pink, are slightly different from each other anatomically. I mean, it took me 50 years to realize that women are completely different from men. Stupid me. I mean, aside from just body parts, women are different than men. There's a different perception of reality in women than men. There's a different take on things. It's a blind spot for each gender. The male blind spot for the female, and the female blind spot for the male. It's the yin-yang thing where you've got light and dark, but within the light there's a circle of dark, and within the dark there's a circle of light. There's no way to have the complete experience without melding together the mystery of male and female, and love and intimacy, and why the universe set it up that way. How come? The heart plays a hidden role in mental health. The organ sends messages to the brain. How those signals influence it is still unclear, but it's happening. Messages that the heart sends to the brain could hold clues to understanding mental health disorders and what drives consciousness. Powerful, mind-blowing stuff. Heart rhythms, as we see with heart rate variability and the QRST complex of the heart, electrical depolarization of the heart, brainstem zones and brain proper zones, mitral cell activity in the heart muscles and valves. Brain cells can take the heart's pulse directly. When heart muscles squeeze, blood is pumped out into vessels, including those in the brain. In the olfactory bulb, specialized nerve cells called mitral cells sense and respond to the pressure change connecting the three rhythms together. Now, back in the late 1800s, there was a guy named Babbitt, Babbitt. You should look him up. I've got his book up in my stack somewhere. But he had the famous Babbitt heart, where he was claiming that the heart is actually a torus, a spiral circulation of electromagnetic discharges through the heart muscle that would spiral upwards around the center and inverse itself inside out and go on the outside of the heart back down to the bottom and then up to the inside at the opposite spin rate up through the top and create this vortex, this toroid vortex of electromagnetic energy in the heart. This is back from the 1800s, by the way. Now we know that the heart has an extended electromagnetic field that extends, 6 feet out from your body. The real power of that is within 3 feet, but it does extend measurably out to 6 feet. The electromagnetic field from the heart. There's a lot going on in the heart. Those muscles are pounding all the time, 60 beats per minute on average, 60 contractions of the heart, which means 60 volleys down the vagus nerve from the autonomic nervous system to the SA node in the heart, spreading an electrical charge across the heart 60 times a minute. That's pretty powerful, generating at right angles a magnetic field. Electromagnetism, where you have electricity pumping, you've got a magnetic field at right angles. Every human body contains a heart that emits an electromagnetic field in the shape of a torus. It moves out the top of the head and back in through the base of the spine in continuous motion in both directions, with the heart as the center. And the heart itself has got a spiral structure that has only been recently discovered. Your heart is a vortex. Jesus points to the heart because it is an electromagnetic vortex that manifests the energetic aura around the body. The heart is the brain for our emotions, and our emotions set energy in motion through our magnetic field. Circular and spiral arrangements of cardiac muscle bundles. Cardiac muscle tissue and its connective tissues are arranged in networks that ensure proper directions of squeezing the blood. They're talking about the fact that new information about anatomical studies of the heart shows that the heart muscles are arranged in a spiral, just like Babbitt's heart. This spiral vortex of electromagnetic energy has special properties when it's in a vortex. That when you take a heart and you start peeling the muscles apart and spread this out, you can see that here's the heart muscle is unrolling. He's unrolling the heart. That the muscle is just one big giant muscle in a spiral. How crazy is that? It's a spiral that can unroll and open up. So you fold this thing back together, you roll it back up together, and you've got this toroid spiral structure where the electrical depolarizations of the vagus nerve coming down to the SA node up and through here, spreading down through this spiral in a toroid electromagnetic field, creates a massive toroid field around your body. This electromagnetic toroid field created by the torus structure of the heart muscle, causing the vagus nerve firing down the SA node to spiral out and accentuate the spiral throughout the system. So this electromagnetic field that extends from the heart 6 feet out from your body is a toroid field. Spiral toroid field, which has special properties in quantum physics. Up through the center, expanded out around the outside and back down, back up through the center, and each of these crossovers is just what we see in ancient literature from India, where we have the concept of Sushumna, which is the spinal cord, life forces the spinal cord up into the brain, and the weaving pattern of Ida and Pingala, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, forming the caduceus, where the two cobra heads come here with wings to the brow chakra. All of this starts to fit together all of a sudden, that there are 7 three-dimensional spiraled crossings, and each one of these crossings forms a vortex, a spinning vortex, which is itself a torus that we call a chakra. And each of these is a step-up transformer where each succeeding chakra spins at a more complex harmonic value with, quote, more petals, more complex, more petals, right? Where we have 4, 6, 12, 16, 96, and 960 step-up transformer. And there's another element that is involved that science still really doesn't take into account. This whole concept of the heart and the circulatory system, where the the blood is coming into the heart, linked to the lungs and being reoxygenated and spewing out from the heart through the arteries into the body to deliver the oxygen to the body and grab the CO2 waste and then exchange that in the lungs so that we blow the CO2 out and we breathe the oxygen in. This powerhouse, and it's all got to do with the big spiral going on here. And the secret to one more element of this is the red blood cells. What makes the blood red? The red blood cells are made up of hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is centered itself around an iron particle, a particle of elemental iron from the periodic table. And in the periodic table, there are 2 areas of the periodic table where the only elements of the entire periodic table, only 2, have magnetic properties. You can make a magnet out of them: iron and rare earth. Rare earth is not something that nature would use because it's, quote, rare. You would use something that's super abundant, like iron is super abundant on Earth. So we use it to make the hemoglobin inside the red blood cell with iron particles that have magnetic properties. And one of the things in high school physics about electromagnetism is if you have a magnet in motion, moving, it generates an electrical field at right angles to itself. And if you have a magnet, say, of donut that's spinning, and you've got a wire passing through that donut, you'll generate electricity in the wire. And that is the principle behind, generators, the big power generating plants, right? They're using nuclear fuel, or they're using coal, or they're using hydroelectric, the power of a waterfall to push propellers that make the spin, that spin the magnet so that the wires going through the magnet generate electricity, and I've got a light bulb going off here because of that. Your body does the same thing, but it's doing it both at the same time. Because we've got iron in all the little red blood cells of your blood, these little hemoglobin particles, which in themselves, now we know, are in these complex spiral design patterns, which are their own vortex inside the heme molecule of every red blood cell in your body. Miniature vortexes of electromagnetic energy inside each heme molecule. So this concept that iron filings in the heme, in the blood vessels that are circulating through your blood in motion, is creating electromagnetic fields around all the blood vessels in your body. And there's a lot of them, right? There's thousands of miles of blood vessels all the way down to a microscopic level, right in the capillary beds, with these, red blood cells move in motion, moving through the body in this rhythmic circulatory system driven by the spiral thing of the heart. And these red blood cells, because of the spiral nature of the heart, the blood travels down these blood vessels also in a spiral. The blood spirals down all the blood vessels. So now we've got toruses within toruses within toruses, and the torus shape is a cosmic shape for amplifying electromagnetic fields to a whole different level. The cosmic esoteric design of the heme molecule itself around iron as an element. Holy moly. Iron, of all the elements of the periodic table, has the #1 most affinity to oxygen than any other molecule. They're hugely drawn together to complete each other's outside shells. That's why it's such a perfect one for blood. And iron, in the presence of oxygen, floating around in blood plasma, means that the iron is wet, and wet iron over time in the presence of oxygen rusts, and rust is red, and that's why your blood is red. Rusty iron filings with magnetic properties spiraling through your blood vessels and creating this incredible torsion field, this toroid field, very similar to what the Chinese already put together with the yin-yang symbol. A toroid field, same business, right? A toroid field. Amazing. Heart-centered meditation, where we can use science to observe the autonomic nervous system through the heart information of the space between each beat, which is set forth by complex factors of the interaction between the heart muscle contracting, the lungs interfacing with that to infuse oxygen and extract carbon dioxide, and harmonic brain frequencies all aligned together that we can cause to go into a highly specific state of balance, the homeostasis state, with a precisely tuned sound frequency. That's biotuning. That's what we did in Cancun, except we tuned everybody's hearts together, 60 people. It was the largest group we've ever done. The largest group I did before that was Mattel. This was 60 people hooked up together with an HRV to see the group entity of this and balance the group entity that now aligns everybody's consciousness together in a unique way that is beyond what we are doing here. What we're doing here is we are listening to a generic soundtrack which gets the job done. But the next step would be to take all of the people who listen to this broadcast and have all of us come to the same physical place, take planes, stay in hotels, get into a big hall together in a big circle and hold hands and break two people apart and attach the sensors and find the group dynamic frequency for the group entity that we are, to step this up to one level higher. That's what I did in Cancun. What a mind-blowing experience. The heart that's thumping in your chest right now. An electromagnetic dance of the heart, the spin of the toroid field, brain waves and states of consciousness, and the master system that controls all systems, the autonomic nervous system, all mathematically harmonically linked together in a central balanced place, is where the magic door opens for your life, for healing, for the deepest stages of meditation. Everything is aligned together properly, the way it was designed. And that brings us to where we are, back here with our own little headphones, to do this ourselves. So headphones, please. And here we go. So, thank you all, everyone, for sticking with me on this great journey. I did come back from Cancun with a new knowledge of how to create the Philosopher's Stone. Happy journeying, everyone, and I'll see you the next time. I'm going to leave the chat open for about 10 minutes or so, then we'll all switch over to the Discord channel. Thank you all. Thank you all very much.